So how many of us have been driving in our cars or watching television, channel surfing, or even playing around on the internet and come across an article or an ad or something that just screams, oh my gosh, if I don't read this, I could die. Like my food could be poisoning me, or my kitchen could be killing me and I don't know it. We all have, right? Every single one of us has seen this, and it's designed to do one thing, right? Get you to filter through a bunch of ads, get you to come to their site, get you to listen to their program. And that's great, right? That's their job. Me, I am not an expert in advertising. I have no idea what words to use to trick someone into doing what I want them to do. Believe me, I would be in a very different line of work if I could. But what I do have is what I tell my 6-year-old. I am a scientist. What does that mean? Well, it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. But to me, it means I am always searching for answers. I always ask questions. I always want to know more. Which means when I'm faced with a particular piece of news or a particular story that says, come back and listen to me and see me and pay attention because you might die if you don't hear this, I know better. I know to stop, listen what they have to say, take it in, but then to go other places to look for new things. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm not here to even tell you what I think. I'm here to help you become informed and where to get information. So health scares in the media. What does that sound like? What does that mean? Well, media touches everything we do, every aspect of our lives. How many of us can't be 5 feet away from their cell phones? Like, mine's across the room right now, and it's actually kind of freaking me out a little bit. I kind of want it in my pocket. I want to know when it goes off. I want to be able to check it. I know there's an email that I just have to read in the next 5 seconds, right? How many of us are like that? Well, the media serves also a better purpose besides making us addicted to our technology. It informs us. It warns us about important things. It tells us when we need to know something. How many of it found it very, very helpful in the last few months to learn about different viruses right now? I can give this talk every year for the next 20 years and never give the same talk. There's always something new to talk about. Always some new scare. Always some new piece of information we need. The problem is, when you present that information in as few as 140 characters, what you are really getting is a very distilled, very brief glimpse of a full story. More so than that, we have the problem of what we call sensationalized reporting. Once upon a time, to be able to report something, you had to have a degree, you had to study, you had to work for years to be able to tell something. Nowadays, anybody who's anyone can send something and millions of people will see it in a second, right? Social media makes reporters out of all of us without the restrictions of responsible reporting. So when you have that, you have problems. Tweets and social media are a wonderful thing. They're a wonderful tool, and they're used in amazing ways. But it's very important to be savvy about how we look at this stuff. So as you can see from one of the slides that I've posted here, we have 2 tweets, including a news story about how Ebola is actually spread. This is from my last time I gave this talk last year, where everyone was thinking about Ebola. We all remember that. People actually tweeted false information that led to scares. So what do we really mean by a scare? A scare is when news reporting or media about an important event becomes so distorted that it actually makes us panic with real emotional, social, and economic consequences. So everybody remember this picture? What do you think when you see this picture? You may not have seen it, but I can assure you it's kind of important. What do you think? What do you feel when you see this? I can tell you what I feel. I feel a little bit afraid. I mean, apart from the little ironic jokes that come to mind about happiest day in your life and hazmat suits, that picture makes me a little frightened. There were real-world implications for that picture, for that information. One patient cost this particular business a significant amount of money and business. This particular scare, people were convinced that they might have Ebola and that it was easily contractable, stopped shopping at this one boutique. Now, to be honest, I have not looked to see if she managed to salvage her business at this point, but there was a time, at the very least, where she thought she was going to lose everything, and she very well may have, all because people were afraid, and people were only afraid because of what they saw. So, as you can see now, there are news stories about how this Akron, Ohio store closed down. Happiest day of our life, hazmat suits, not quite the mixture we want, right? So what are we afraid of today? As I said earlier, I can give this talk every year, talk about something different. Last year, it was Ebola and measles. This year, it could very well and very easily be the Zika virus. Everybody wants to know about Zika. But whatever story I choose to focus on when I talk in something like this, the end point is always the same. How do we get informed, and where do we get information? It's not about education. It's not about being smarter or less intelligent. It's about information. All of us have access to millions and millions and millions of bits of information if we want it. But how do we distill what is useful information from what is complete, outright fabrications, or at least information with an angle? Everybody has an agenda these days, right? Everybody knows what it's like to have a particular slant. Where's probably the worst place to find that kind of slant? Where would we find that, right? Social media. Everybody wants you to pay attention to their Twitter feed. Everybody wants you to look at them on Facebook. So they're going to do whatever it takes to attract your attention. We have to be cognizant of that. So what's the big thing that we always hear about nowadays and we're really concerned with, even though they've existed since 1970? How about genetically modified organisms? Or our GMOs? GMO has its own Twitter feed, the GMO Journal. I don't know about you, but I don't imagine a genetically modified organism is actually sitting at its computer typing about itself, so you imagine it's probably somebody with an agenda happening right there. Regardless, there are thousands of people, millions even, that actually tweet about GMOs. What does that mean? What is a genetically modified organism? What are we talking about? What we are actually trying to understand is how these organisms are created. To do that, we need to look at the basics, right? Genetics for everyday life. What is a gene? If you actually sat down at your computer and used any number of search engines and you looked up gene, you're going to get a variety of answers that essentially are a unit of heredity. A piece of DNA that makes RNA that then is inheritable. A functional unit of inheritance. Does that make sense to the average person? Does that actually work for understanding what a gene is? Not necessarily. I like to think of genes as being something that make a product. In this case, genes encode proteins. And what we are talking about is we have a bit of genetic material that tells us how we can have brown hair, blue eyes, be tall, be short, be able to roll our tongues, right? We need to be able to do that every once in a while. So genes basically encode proteins. They are the information that make us what we are. They are what we associate with cellular life, metabolism, and existence. Why do we worry about GMOs? What is actually a GMO? So all of my genes are mine, right? Half of them came from my dad, half of them from my mom, and you get the lovely amalgam that is me, right? And I have some little genetic replicas that are, half mine at least. That mixture of information is what makes me me. They're my bases, they are what my proteins are, it's what gives me my brown hair, everything. When we say a GMO, a genetically modified organism, we are talking about taking bits of genes from one place and putting them in another place, not naturally, like I am from my parents or my kids are from me, but using biochemical processes, using actual technology to perform this. So why are we afraid of this? What are the general fears that are out there that are being spread in social media? Risk of allergenicity, right? You have a peanut allergy, and your peanut genes create a protein or an antigen that you're allergic to. You don't want that ending up in things you're not allergic to, right? Sounds kind of scary. Suddenly you're allergic to everything. That's the fear. A food that typically does not cause an allergic reaction suddenly becomes capable of one. We also have fears of gene transfer. To make these sorts of genetically modified organisms in the first place, we have to have the ability to transfer genes. So the fear is that other organisms will pick up those genes, like antibiotic resistance in bacteria, or that we can actually create harmful organisms by picking up these genes that we set up for these purposes. And then the third big fear is outcrossing, where we have our non-modified plants suddenly breeding with the modified organisms or gaining that particular modification. But what are the benefits? Why would we do this? Like I said, we've been doing this since the 1970s. And if you want to think about genetic engineering and genetically modified plants as being something that's done from unnatural properties, then we've been breeding selectively for centuries to get plants that are more drought resistant, that are better at surviving in different environments, that are going to survive pests. We've been doing that for a long time. The difference here is we're actually a little bit of cutting and pasting in terms of genes. So what are the benefits? Drought and pest resistance, as I already said. We can actually make new organisms that produce drugs we need, chemicals we need. And we can also make organisms like rice that carry additional nutrients for malnourished areas. All of these things are good reasons. These are all reasons that we do this sort of modification. But most of the time when you're reading about it, you only hear about the bad and the concerns. And even though we have millions of ways to study and millions of ways to look at this, it's really important that we have information. If I only ever hear the bad, I'm never going to understand truly what's happening. Now, as I said, it is not my job to tell you what I think about these things. That's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is to help you get the information to make up your minds. So, how do we check sources? What you think and what you believe is completely up to you. That is the beauty of being what we are as people, right? We live in a free country. You get to think and feel what you think and feel. And that is a wonderful thing. But the best way to make those sorts of decisions and to have support is to have the evidence, right? How do you get a good source from a bad source? You need to make sure you're looking at the right places with people who don't have an agenda. For most of us, that's difficult. What is the first thing that pops up when you search in a major search engine? Well, I won't say it by name, but it's sort of the Encyclopedia Britannica of our day, where it's a great place to start, not where you should spend all of your time looking for sources. Yes, I was alive when the Encyclopedia Britannica was still a thing. It's a wonderful thing to read. Nowadays, that's not where you want to go. It's a great place to start, but you need to look elsewhere. If you're talking about health and you're talking about your role in healthcare, the CDC, our Center for Disease Control, they are our best choice for information. They actually have many of the resources on GMOs, on studies that have been performed, and certainly all of those lovely viruses we talked about. Another great source would be the Mayo Clinic. They are also geared toward one major goal, providing information to everyone that is accurate and proven. That is what we want. Accurate, up-to-date, reliable information. And that's all you need to do. You need to take what information you get every day and just spend a few more minutes finding out the truth for yourself. So that a scare doesn't become a scare, but rather a better understanding of the world around us. So with that, I'd like to thank the Community Semester and Unbounded Possibilities, as well as the Center for Genomic Advocacy, the College of Arts and Sciences, and the Department of Biology, and in particular, Dr. Isaac Lamb for giving me this opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.